Shalom, everyone. So I'm honored that you asked me to share with you some Torah, some teachings, but I don't really know anything. But even the zchut of Avira Da'aramachim, the Gemara says that a person who lives in Eretz Yisrael is imbued with a certain level of wisdom and understanding, just in the zchut of being in Eretz Yisrael. Anyways, I hope you don't mind the background. I chose this because this has been on our wall since our Seder last year and hasn't come off. Zecher L'Yitzit Mitzrayim. I thought it would be appropriate. Anyways, I would like to share with you some ideas, maybe related to the allergies that I'm suffering from right now. There's a mitzvah, a bracha that we make on the very beginning of Nisan. It starts maybe with Rosh Chodesh Nisan. The bracha of Birkat Ilanot. Now, Birkat Ilanot is a bracha that you make on fruit trees only at the beginning when they're starting to flower before the fruit actually comes from the tree. Right? Before the fruit actually comes out, according to some, you can't even say the bracha once the fruit is there, just on the flowering. And I think that's important because I think that's part of the message of Nisan. Now, it's interesting that there's a mashal comparison that we say daily in our Amidah relating to the whole idea of Geula in terms of flowering. We talk about the flourishing of the Geula. We call Medinat Yisrael Reshit Tzmichat Geulateinu, the beginning of the flourishing of our Geula. And I think that this is very important to understand that why we're making the bracha on the flower and not on the fruit, which is very strange. And I think that message comes across throughout the story of Nisan, throughout the story of the Seder night. When we talk about the Seder, one of the most prominent mitzvot is the Arba Kosot, right, which of course relate to the Arba Lashonot Geula, V'otzeiti, V'tzalti, V'galti, V'lakachti. And it's interesting that these cups, which each of them is a certain level of celebration, correspond to levels of Geula which are very incomplete. For example, the first cup corresponds to V'otzeiti, Mitachat Tzibot Mitzrayim. Hashem took us out of the terrible Avodat Parech, the great oppression and suffering that we experienced in Mitzrayim. But we're still slaves. We're still in Mitzrayim. How is that really a celebration, a cause for celebration, when we're still suffering, we still lack freedom, we're still out of our homelands? Why are we celebrating with the cup? Or with the cup of bracha? And then we continue to do so, even towards the very end, right? We're not yet at the Heveti. And we're still, each stage, right? We're celebrating with a cup. And I think that is important to understand because it says in Micha, the prophecy, that the future Geula will parallel Yetziat Mitzrayim, will parallel the process of Geula, and that's exactly the point, the process. Now, in terms of the Gemara tells us that the future Geula will come about kima, slowly, like Ayala Tashachar, like the rising of a sun, which comes out slowly, not all at once. It doesn't go till the sun like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's part of the chesed, because if you ever wake up with someone turning on all the lights in the room, so it's shocking to your system and it's unpleasant. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like the rising of the sun, slowly gives us time to acclimate and prepare properly for the Geula. And that's what happened in Mitzrayim, that what will happen in the future Geula. And the lesson is that we have to appreciate each stage of the Geula. That even if it's incomplete, even if it's lacking, even if it's not exactly what we had hoped for at that point, we're still celebrating and thankful and showing our Hakarat HaTov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I think that is part of the lesson of the Birkat Ilanot. That even though the fruit's not there yet, or it hasn't yet started to come back, but there's the beginning, the first stages, the first inkling of Geula, we are celebrating. Now, I think this caused a lot of confusion because people expect, and I think it's incorrect, that the Geula comes about all with one force, the Vatachat, but that's not exactly the way it's supposed to happen. It comes out in a process. And I think that there are many people who maybe not yet, hopefully this year there will be the full Geula, so it won't be a machloket, but up until this year there's been a certain machloket in the religious community about whether you celebrate Yom HaTzmaut. One of the arguments against celebrating Yom HaTzmaut on Hei Iyar is that this is not the full Geula. Look around. We don't have a Beit HaMikdash. There is no Mashiach. Not everyone in the world is recognizing Emet. So how is that a reason to celebrate? But that's why we call it Reshit Tzmichat Geulateinu. No one says this is the full Geula. But we are recognizing that this is the beginning. At each stage, we have to appreciate. Yes, we don't have the Beit HaMikdash. Yes, there are problems. We have enemies. Not the whole world doesn't recognize that Kadosh Baruch Hu is the Melech. But yet, there is so much to appreciate. And therefore, we are celebrating that level of Geula for what we have. I think that's important on a personal level as well, to understand that even though maybe we're davening and we're hoping for a certain thing to come true in our life, for a certain Yeshua, certain salvations to happen in our life, whether it be for health or for shidduch or for parnasa, whatever it may be. Okay, so maybe we're hoping to have a X amount of dollars of salary. Okay, it hasn't happened yet, but we have a job. And okay, so we don't have, but at least it's the one stage that we have to celebrate. Okay, I want to be married, okay, but it doesn't happen yet completely, but I have dates, right? Every stage has to be celebrated, right? Right now, my allergies are not great, and I don't appreciate full recovery yet, but each stage, if I'm not sniffling as much as I was yesterday, that has to be appreciated. That's the level of a karsa tov. Each stage has to be makir tov. And there's an interesting teaching by the students of Rav Kook that each day of Pesach corresponds to a different chag. It says in the Shulchan Aruch of Hilchot Pesach, it says that through the system of the Atbash, we learn all the days of that week for all the chagim. Aleph, for example, the first day of Pesach, which this year is Friday night, corresponds to Taf, which is Tisha B'Av. According to some, that is why we have the egg at Leil HaSeder, right, to remember the Tisha B'Av Sudat HaMafzeket. And therefore, this year, Tisha B'Av will be Friday night. The second night in the Atbash system is Shin. So this year, Motzei Shabbat is the second night of Pesach. Therefore, Shavuot will be Motzei Shabbat. Gimel is corresponding to Reish, Rosh Hashanah. This year, Sunday night will be the first time Rosh Hashanah, and so on and so forth. The students of Cook asked, but it stops in the Shulchan Aruch at 6. But there are 7 days of Pesach. I don't understand. Why only 7? And maybe that is part of the idea of the future Geula. Zayin, said the students of Cook, equals Ayin, corresponds to Ayin. But what is Ayin? What holiday is Ayin? They said, well, maybe it's Yom Ha'atzmaut. And indeed, it works out that every year, Zayin, the day of Sudat HaMashiach, right, where we read about Kriyat Yam Suf, the culmination of the Geula, we actually have the same day, Ayin, Yom Ha'atzmaut, Hey Iyar, happens every year the same day as Zayin of Pesach. So Bezrat Hashem, this year, Yom Ha'atzmaut, will no longer be any debate because the full Geula will have come about. But until then, we take the lesson home that in each stage of our lives, we have to appreciate even the little, tiny little bits of Geula that happens, not just the full thing. Because it's not about the entire picture, it's about each stage. We have to be makar tov to everything that happens in our life, to approach the level of a karsa tov, where it's not just about being the glass half empty, but also the glass half full. That there's always negatives, there's always things that are lacking, there's always imperfections, there's always incompletion in this world. But we have to appreciate what we have in each stage of that. Right? So okay, so your cup is only a quarter full, but it's not empty. That's something to celebrate. And if we have that level of appreciation of things in our lives, so maybe that's the secret to true simcha. Bezrat Hashem, we'll all have that full level of simcha this Pesach. Chag Kasher V'Sameach to all of you. Shalom.